The second model of how to build community that we're going to look at comes from community psychology. And it just proposes that you have 5 components that are needed in order for people to feel they are a member of a community. And I like to present the primal branding together with the psychological sense of community model, because whereas the primal branding is kind of like an outside in model, where you say if we put these different components in place, we can sort of design from the outside in a sense of a community. The sense of psychological sense of community kind of goes from the inside out. It comes from interviewing people who feel part of the community and interviewing them about what is it that gives them that feeling of community. And from there, they have then developed these 5 different components that need to be part of it. Technically, the original work developed 4 components, and then some later people who came later, they added a 5th, and have been some debate about the 5th component, but I think it's actually a really good addition to the model. So the first component is membership. In order to feel that you are part of a community, it has to be clear whether you're a part of the community. So there has to be some sort of criteria, and if you fulfill those criteria, you are part of the community. When it's about an organization, it's quite easy. If you're hired, that's the membership criteria. But what can you do when you're talking about consumers or customers? I think one of the things that is very powerful is to have branded clothes. So if you are wearing a t-shirt with an Apple logo or some other logo or a slogan from a particular brand, then you have declared yourself to be a member of that community, and other members of the community can recognize you as such. I remember once many years ago, there was a radio program called the Electrical Barometer, where a lot of the listeners, they would send in letters, and some of the letters would be read on the air, and then it was like a top 10 playlist, so they played different songs. And every week, some of the people who wrote, they were rewarded by having a t-shirt sent to them where it said the Danish word for silence on the front, stille. And they were kind of sought after. It's like you tried to write a good letter so that you would get one of these t-shirts. And if you got one, you would really wear it because, it was an achievement to get one of these. And of course, if you saw somebody anywhere in the city wearing one of these t-shirts, nobody else, people who didn't listen to the program wouldn't know what it was. It's just a t-shirt that said silence. Okay, why not? But if you were a fan of the program, you would recognize them. You would know that every Sunday they would sit and listen to the program, and that you had something in common. And that really contributed to that sense of community. The second component is the component of influence. So it's a sense of mattering to the community, and a sense that the community matters to you. So it's being member of the community has a real impact on your life. It influences your life, and you being part of the community influences the community. So there is sort of a two-way avenue of influence between you and the community, between members of the community and the community itself. And this is also very important. And some of the ways that organizations can do this with their employees, of course, that would be that there is an avenue to communicate higher up in the hierarchy. So if you have a good idea, people higher in the hierarchy will listen to you, and you have a feeling that you can talk and give ideas for change. And if employees offer ideas for change, and these ideas actually result in real change being implemented, those stories have to be told in the organization to show there is a possibility for influence, That's a very good way of building community internally in an organization. I've worked in many places where there's no such, either there's no such mechanism, or the stories are not being disseminated or not being told. And the result is a lot of cynicism among employees often, where they say, oh, there are these things that would be really good if they change, but nobody's listening to us, and there's no possibility of making any change. And those employees do not feel that they are part of a community at all. And it's the same with external communities among consumers, users. There have to be that feedback mechanism where they can actually give suggestions. One example would be the computer program Dineo, which is an accounting program, and they are very receptive to suggestions from their users, and they sometimes they are implemented. Another example would be Simpleo, which is an online platform for if you want to give online courses and sell online courses. That's one of the platforms. And there they've done something very smart. They have visualized it. So you can write a suggestion for something you want, a new feature maybe you want implemented on the platform. And then other people can read other users can read your suggestion and vote on them. And you can see how many people have voted on your suggestion. And the suggestions that get the most votes are the ones that are top of the queue to be developed and implemented. So I think that's very smart because it visualizes this connection, this sense of influence. So if you feel that you has an influence in the community, then you will feel more of a community. And I think also in your groups, you are assigned different roles, and therefore you matter to the team. If you were not there, the role that you were assigned wouldn't be fulfilled. So in that way, that also helps create a sense of influence, and through that it contributes to the sense of community. The third element is integration and fulfillment of needs. So as human beings, we all have a lot of needs. You can think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So there are physiological needs. You need food, you need shelter, you need money to pay for those things. Safety is a need. Love and belonging is a need. Esteem, being seen in a positive light is a need. And self-actualization, learning, growing, developing is a need. Those are the needs that Maslow talk about. In order to get a sense of being, a sense of community, it's good if membership of the community helps you fulfill at least one of those kind of needs. So again, in an organization, of course, you're paid a salary. So in that way, being a member of the organization already helps you with some of your needs. But I think there's other ways of thinking about it. I think a very good example of an organization that helps build a community by helping its employees to fulfill some of the higher order needs is Google. So Google famously have this 20% program where engineers are given one day every week to work on whatever they want to work on. So they have all these little side projects that they can work on. And that helps them, gives them an opportunity to fulfill their self-actualization need. So it's a very, very clever way of increasing that sense of community by fulfilling some of the employees' needs that might not always be fulfilled in organizations. When you look at external communities, I think some products are based on really strong ethical codes. For example, there's a mobile phone company called Fairphone, which says we all the metal used in the phone comes from mines where the workers are paid properly and treated properly. And if you make the phone, I actually I don't remember how recognizable the phone is, but if the phone is very recognizable and people who know about Fairphone will see that phone and say, oh, that's a Fairphone, then that can help consumers communicate their values and be seen in a positive light by other people who have the same values. And so it covers their need for esteem. And this is another way that you can think about it. So how can you, if you want to create a community among your users, then how can you help users fulfill some of these different needs? The fourth element is shared emotional connection. And so this is, in order to feel that you're part of a community, it's good if you have gone through different things with the community, that you have a history together. And again, inside organizations, this can be you have survived the turnaround together, you survived some hard times together, you have had some amazing successes together. If you are a small entrepreneurial team, when you win your first investors, and then something goes really well and something goes really wrong, and you very quickly get a history together. And it's very good, again, to make stories about that history and retell those stories in order to generate that sense we really have a history together. When you want to do it outside among users, I think one example that I saw, which was genius, is Pokemon. So the app that you can have on your smartphone, where you can go around and then you can catch Pokemons in the real world. It's at one point there was a sense that nobody's doing that anymore, right? So if you were a user of this program, you felt a little bit isolated, or it's silly, right? It was a fad, and now nobody does it anymore. And then what they did was that they put in for a few days and they marketed it in advance. These days you can catch some legendary Pokemons, like really super Pokemons, but you can't do it alone. You have to meet up with other people, and then you have to sort of take down the Pokemon, you have to fight it, and you have to be at least 4 or 5 people in order to win one of these Pokemons and then catch them and have them in your collection. And all of a sudden, it was summer, I remember it very clearly, in Copenhagen, and everywhere in the city you would see groups of people with their phones out, sort of standing and doing something together. Everywhere people were doing this, and it really consolidated that sense of community around the Pokemon app. I think it was really a stellar example of community building. The last component is the component of responsibility, and this is if you have the possibility, if you make it possible for people in the community to take responsibility for the well-being of the group and its individual members, that also is something that really helps create a sense of community. And I'll give you a slightly funny example. One community that I have helped build is a community called Tango Sprouts, or Tangospirer in Danish. And so it's very simple. It's a community for young people from 15 to 30 who meets and gets 3 free lessons in Argentinian tango. And when we created that event, we just wanted more young people into the tango community, because it's just nice to get young people into the tango community. And we knew that tango is a difficult dance. You have to put in a lot of effort to learn. And so we thought the dance itself is not going to attract young people. But if we can build a really appealing community around it, then the community is going to attract young people and make young people stay. So we used a lot of these way of thinkings to build a community. And one of the things we did was very simple. We said, the lessons are free, but you have to bring snacks. And that had a twofold purpose. One is we wanted people to stay after the lesson, talk to each other, and form bonds, because otherwise there wouldn't be any community if people didn't make friends. And many times if you offer a lesson, then when the lesson is over and you say, oh, now you can stay and practice, most people just go home. But if you brought a bag of chips and put it on the table, it doesn't make sense to go home before you've eaten the chips. And so on one level, it was a way of making people stay after the class, so there would be a space where the community could form and build. And also one of the things we were thinking is this is a way of giving people the possibility of contributing and taking responsibility. And it was very amazing to see what kind of snacks people were bringing. At one point we had one member who was working at a donut factory. That was brilliant. He always brought boxes of donuts. So this is the fifth. How can you make it possible for your consumers, for your users, to take responsibility for the community? And I think it's also it's good to think that way, because it eases your job. It shouldn't be all up to you to build the community. You should elicit the help of the members of the community. Good. So let's do an exercise around this. So again, select a group of people that you wish to build a community among. It can be the same group of people as in the last exercise, or if you want to try a different group of people, you can do so. And then discuss how you can use the 5 elements of this psychological sense of community framework to build such a community. And be very concrete. What exact kind of activities can you do? What kind of, should you use branded t-shirts? And if you do, then how are they going to be disseminated? Is it something people should buy? Is it something people are rewarded for doing something? Be very concrete. And you can also discuss, once you've done this, then discuss a little bit what do you feel the difference is between the 2 frameworks that we've been looking at. What is the difference between using primal branding and using psychological sense of community? And again, bring out a phone or a computer or something so you can record your conversation.